So now it's time to actually make our spiral. Now, in order to make our spiral, I like that Corey Hart action with your sunglasses inside. Before we make our spiral, we need to make hexagons. And the more hexagons we make, the better our spiral will look. Now, the first hexagons that we draw are going to be easy to draw. They're going to look fine. The trick here is if you make a mistake early, it's going to compound itself every time you make a new hexagon. So it is critical that you are as accurate as possible, or else you will limit the number of hexagons that you can make, which means if the fewer hexagons, the worse your drawing looks. So we are going to connect our midpoints of our hexagon to create a new hexagon. So I'm not going to use my ruler tool because I need to make sure it's as accurate as possible. Use my straight line tool. And so I'm going to have two sets of colored hexagons. I'm going to have my dark gray, and I'll use an off red. So now I'm going to connect my midpoint, because remember, we made our angle bisector right here. We're going to connect this angle bisector, sorry, not angle, perpendicular bisector, with this perpendicular bisector. You want this to be fairly light. And then I'm going to connect this perpendicular bisector, this intersection right here. Oh, and I missed it. With this angle perpendicular bisector here. Then I'm going to connect again to create a new hexagon. And the more accurate you are, the better your drawing will be later. So now we have a second hexagon that is inside the original hexagon. So now I'm going to make a third hexagon. And I'm going to make this third hexagon by connecting the midpoint of my red hexagons together. So I'm going to connect this midpoint to this midpoint, this midpoint to this midpoint, midpoint to midpoint, midpoint to midpoint, midpoint to midpoint, and midpoint to midpoint.
I wish I could do it with computer.
Now, to make sure that you're doing things right, I would like to call your attention to one fact. You'll notice that this line here is parallel to this line here. If these lines are not parallel, it is a dead giveaway something has not happened the way it should. So make sure your lines remain parallel. Well, right now we have 3 hexagons. For you to have your full spiral, we're looking at least 8 hexagons.
8?
At least. The more hexagons you do, the better. So continue on making the hexagons. I will do it up on the board. You will follow along at your tables. And I'm going to continue to color code so it makes it a little bit easier. So then, using my red, I'm going to connect this midpoint of the gray hexagon, the small gray hexagon, to create another hexagon. All right. So now I have 4 hexagons. I'm going to make another gray one. So now I have 5, and I'm double checking every time to make sure my lines are always parallel. So now I'm going to make another red. So you see the pattern here. So you can just continue on. The devil in these drawings is definitely in the details. And one of the reasons why it's really important for you to do a lot of hexagons is you'll notice that the space in between each hexagon is diminishing every time. And that's going to give you a really nice illusion of this spiral spiraling into nothingness. But it also means you have to do a lot of them to make it look right. So now I'm on to connecting the gray midpoints. Now the reason why these need to be so accurate is we are always basing our next hexagon on the midpoints of our previous hexagon. So if the lines are off on an early hexagon, that mistake is going to get translated and compounded through the drawing. And so that's why it's critical that you are as accurate as possible as you go through. So I'm going to do a couple more.
I don't know.
Why? We just like it.
I like getting Ian now.
Yeah, I like it. He's my favorite.
So right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm going to go down to 12. Now, I can honestly tell you that the more you do this, the quicker it takes. So I realize it seems like this is taking forever, but the second time you do this, you can get through very, very quickly. So the thing is, if you don't go to a really small vanishing point, then it kind of looks like the spiral doesn't end where it should end, which is why I'm taking the time to go so far into this. And so I'm going to stop there. So now I'm going to start making the spiral, and I'm going to do that by darkening in my construction lines. So I'm just locking that down. I'm going to send this to the background so that I can draw on top of it. All right, so here we go. So I'm going to start by looking at this corner here. Now this corner here obviously occurs right here. And it goes to the midpoint of my top hexagon. So I know that I'm going to have to darken in this line to this line. But once I get to the midpoint of the outermost hexagon, you'll notice that my spiral kind of jumps lines. It takes one move closer to the center. So what line goes a little bit closer to the center from this point here? What color is it? Red. It's this red line here. So then I'm going to color that one in. Then, so I'm at this point here. So once I get to this intersection, I go one line in. So now I'm back on the gray. I get to an intersection, then I go one line in. I'm at the intersection, one line in. The intersection, then one line in, one line in, one line in, one line in. So every time I come to an intersection, I jump to a line that is going closer to the center. So at that point I can go here and then stop. So oh, that's not what I wanted to do. So it's hard to see, but you end up with this first spiral coming down. And so that's your first spiral. How many actual spirals are there? Well, you have this one here, right here, right here, right here. So what I would do is I would then start with this point of intersection and follow this spiral all the way in. Start with that one, follow it in, and then go with these. Now I will show the rest of this drawing on the third video. I wish you luck on figuring this out at home. If you need help, help will always be given at Slavens for those who ask for it, online. Oh,